Hello and welcome back to El Pozo, the final El Pozo of the season. I'm your host, Nick Bell, this evening, and I'm delighted to be joined by my co-host, Liam Bamridge, hot off the back of a trip from Madrid, but this time not to go and watch some fantastic Spanish third-tier football, was it, Liam? Slightly different your occasion this time, wasn't it?
Yes, no football at all, sadly. And hot is absolutely the right word. It's very, very warm in Spain at the moment, as I'm sure a lot of you know. Somewhere around 36 to 38 degrees. So yes, came back to the rain. So something's never changed. Never mind. Talking of fairly uninspiring weather here, I suppose this was the show that we didn't really want to make, did we? When we started these playoff finals, we made it quite clear who we wanted to win these two matchups, and sadly, it didn't really work out as we'd hoped, did it?
Yeah, talk about putting your colours onto the mast. It was very well signpointed for us, wasn't it? But both of those games didn't go in the surprising way in the end, Liam, especially after those first legs, really. But there was a lot of drama this weekend. So let's just dive straight into it. Talking about the game that was on Saturday first at El Torrelín. Ponferradina, basically, it was all square after the game in Andorra. So it was very much leaning towards Ponfe's favour, dare I say, Liam. They've only, obviously got that home advantage in the second leg. They've got the advantage that they finished higher in the league. It wasn't a bad turnout from the fans of either side either as well. Friend of the podcast, Chris Pigeon, shared some of the images and videos of the recibimientos with me. And it looked like a party atmosphere. And everything pointed to me that there was going to be a party in Ponferrada that night. I just had that feeling. It didn't quite go that way. How was that first half, Liam?
Yeah, it's interesting. We always knew that Ponfe would turn out and force it the fans at a home game like that. I was slightly surprised by the Andorra turnout. It wasn't fantastic, but it's a long way from Andorra to Ponferrada, and I'm sure that the club offered various incentives to help people to get across there. I know when they went to Ibiza, if they got over there, then they basically had a free match ticket when they got there. They may well have offered something similar this time around, but not a bad turnout, as I say, and a cracking atmosphere. And as you say, it felt like Ponfe were really in the box seat, and they had Cortés back, didn't they? Who'd gone off injured the week before, but only on the bench. So yeah, it looked like a really good matchup. But we said last week, didn't we, that Andorra dangerous, and the first half, there wasn't a huge amount happening, but the first big chance that I saw really fell to the home side, across from Borja Valle from the right hand side, brilliant cross into the near post, and once Bustos gets on the end of that at the near post, although it's a difficult chance, I don't know about you, Nick, but I think he really should be hitting the target from there. He's only about 6 or 7 yards out, isn't he?
Oh, absolutely. And given his recent form as well, you put your mortgage on him scoring from there as well. He's scored from a lot more difficult positions, let's put it that way. And yeah, I agree with you about this first half. It wasn't really one of note. It felt cagey to me, like no one really wanted to make the first mistake. And once this opportunity presented itself to you, it's one of those that they'll look back on, especially now, thinking, that could have been a moment for us, just a touch more class here, maybe a bit more polish there. Then Ponfe could have been going in at the break with a goal advantage, didn't they?
Yeah, I think so very much. I think it is a hard situation for the home side in this situation, because they know it must be in the back of their minds. They just have to not get beaten over 120 minutes and they're through. And this is the ultimate prize for them in this very last game of the season. So whether that was part of it, but it felt like a really important moment in the game. They did have another chance. Well, I wouldn't call it a chance. Dewey had a decent effort on goal later on. Fairly comfortable save for Ratti, I think, low down to his right. Wasn't a huge amount of power on that effort. And then at the other end, Nieto ran clear, also looked in a good position to test Prieto, but I think he sort of hit the side net, and it wasn't a save anyway. But then for me, a massive talking point, Nick, we've had quite a few of these in these playoff games, haven't we? I don't know about you, but this challenge from Sibilla, the Ponfe centre half, on Lautaro de Leon, he's running through on goal in the Andorran forward. I think it's a red card. I think he's through on goal. I think it's a foul. And it feels to me like the refs bottled another big decision. We talked about this before, didn't we? Do referees want to make these massive, potentially game-changing decisions? Are they reluctant to do it? And I understand that because there's so much at stake. But Nick, this is a red card, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think they were, very much remiss that it didn't go their way, unfortunately, especially from Latour de Leon, because you could see how he was gestating that, given he's one of the best strikers in the league as well, there's a good to fair chance he could have taken advantage of this. But, for me, you're absolutely spot on. The referees in all these games as well, and we'll come on to Nastic and their complaints later. But it is another one of these opportunities where we've seen clear and obvious challenges. We've seen clear and obvious impediments, and they've just gone begging. And, dare we ask Liam, if these decisions have been made correctly, let's call it as what it is. What would the picture look like now? Would we have Andorra in Segunda? Would we have Real Sociedad be in Segunda? Would Merida have got through to the finals? We don't know, and I think they need help with this. This isn't a referee bashing segment, but we've got the technology, we've got the assistance. It's going to be introduced next season. It should have been brought in now. So yeah, that was a big one that went begging for Andorra there to take an early lead.
Yeah, I mean, I've not seen any confirmation that it is coming next season. This is DVS or whatever it's called, isn't it? Is it called D? I can't remember what it is. But it's kind of VAR light, isn't it? But I guess tell you what, Nick, if there were ever any issue about whether they should or not, I think these players should convince them that it absolutely has to come in. And I know it's ridiculous, isn't it? As soon as we get VAR, we start whinging about how terrible VAR is. But there have been so many instances where I just feel, it's just not good calls from referees, and as you say, technology says let's give him a hand. Second half for me a little bit better overall. I thought Alvaro Martin had an excellent game overall for Andorra, real at the hub of that midfield for me. Really, he was really key. Hit the bar with an effort in early in the second half. I think he was at Real Madrid Castilla before, so he's got a bit of pedigree as Alvaro Martin. Really impressive in this game, and I'm not sure if his ball through. It was a left-footed player's ball in behind the Ponfe defence. It might well have been Alvaro Martin again who provided the assist for the decisive moment of the evening, basically, wasn't it? And because De Leon gets beyond the defence, Prieto comes rushing out, and we've seen this happen hundreds of times before, haven't we, Nick? It's almost inevitable what happens next, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. The blood's gone to Prieto's head, which again is unusual given how brilliant he's been this season for Ponfe. Dare we utter the words, he's possibly the best goalkeeper in the league, and obviously he really enamoured us when he wore that swimming cap away at Orense. But again, this is probably absolutely playoff final nerves, big pressure on the line, big expectation. He's made a decision to commit, but he's absolutely wiped out the Latour de Leon, and the referee's got no choice here, to give the penalty, and then it just gives it all for Ponfe to do on this. The penalty also, clearly well dispatched as well by De Leon. We've already spoken about how much quality he possesses, and it'll be interesting to see whether him and Manu Nieto can convert the form they've seen this season into the Segunda next season. But after this moment in time, it becomes just kitchen sink time for Ponfe, doesn't it? It is all backs to the wall. We've got to do something to try and get back into this game. And they still had the slightest of chances, didn't they?
Yeah, very much so. I don't think I was very impressed with De Leon's penalty, to be honest. I mean, I think probably what overall we're thinking about here is the rebound, isn't it? The way he converts the rebound is pretty clinical. I think his penalty was actually pretty poor. Prieto better than luck, I suppose. He makes a decent save to his right, but the ball just comes straight back out to De Leon. But again, he's anticipated, hasn't he? He's followed through, and as I say, I don't know. Yeah, I wouldn't say it was a cool finish, perhaps a bit more scrambled, but yeah, it's that goal scoring instinct. And he has, of course, played in Segunda and De Leon. He was at Mirandés last year and didn't really impress anybody. It's only the second half of the season, from what I remember. So yeah, he's got a point to prove, but he's certainly come hot at the right time for Andorra at the end of the season. And yeah, they did throw everything at it, Ponfe, but it just felt like they didn't really create an awful lot. They had this goal from Baye, the goal that never was because it was disallowed for offside. Really good call, I thought. There was a player beyond it, was quite a long way offside, but Baye wasn't far off. And let's not forget that they don't have the technology here, the assistants. So I thought that was a decent call. But yeah, overall, I don't know what you think. I just felt like they froze a little bit, Pompey, on the big occasion.
Yeah, and for me, you can't isolate it to just this game either. We look at it on the tune of its merits. Pompey didn't win a game in this playoff campaign. In 90 minutes, they didn't take the initiative. They didn't assert themselves as the dominant side that they certainly showed themselves to be in the second half of the season. Let's not forget that they were literally a goal away from being automatically promoted in place of Kultu. And that takes its effect. It's such a psychological battering to become so close to then have to pick yourself up and dust yourself down and go again for another 4 games at least.
I thought they did not win the first game again. They did not win the return game against Antequera. They didn't win the tie overall, did they? I think they had to rely on basically going through on being the higher placed team. But I think they won that game 2-1. But it was an impressive start to that game from what I remember. And after that, not so impressive. So they were very poor away, I thought, at Antequera again. And then, as I say, you look at these 2 games overall, I thought they weren't bad in Andorra, but I've seen them play a lot better this season. I
thought they were 2-2 in the first game. You're right. It was 2-1, wasn't it, in that second leg against Antequera on the day. So yeah, you're right. But I think again, it's not to go the distance in that first semi-final is possibly, again, not something that should have really happened given the levels of the squads we were talking about. And then, like you say, for Andorra, I think Andorra just had to pick them off, if I'm being perfectly honest, because they controlled both games very, very well from Andorra. And it's not that they rose to the occasion; they just managed the tempo. They did what they needed to do. They kept it simple, and they got the goals they needed, and they kept it that way. And that's why they'll go and play in Segunda next season. Whereas I think Ponfe, you're right, I don't think it's that they didn't freeze. I just don't think they were massively up for it, unfortunately.
I think it has to be. I can't imagine they weren't up for it. I mean, whether it was psychological, some of them obviously would have played in the playoffs the previous season, whether it was just one of those, whether, as you said, we said before, how much will they affect, you mentioned it just now, how much will they have been affected by just missing out on being champions? I don't know, but whatever the reasons are for it, that, as I say, for me, they were a bit underwhelming throughout these 4 games, given the levels that they demonstrated, especially towards the end of the season. They were tremendous, weren't they? I felt really sorry for Prieto. He just looked absolutely gutted at the end, and he's had a great season overall. I would agree with you. I think there's a great chance that he is the best keeper in either of these 2 grupos this season. But yeah, what a big moment to make an error of judgment, it has to be said. And of course, now we look at it, failed in the playoffs 2 seasons in a row. What do they do next? John Bolo, the hero of yesteryear, is free at the moment. I think probably quite a few people would like to see him come back, but I think there's quite a lot of stuff that needs to fall into place before that can become a reality. But overall, yeah, they've had, you can't say they've had a brilliant season, because it would only be a brilliant season, wouldn't it, if they'd actually got promoted. I suppose overall they've had another very good season, but fallen just short. And let's hope they regroup over the summer and come back strong with whoever they end up having in charge in the dugout in 25-26. So should we move on to the second game?
Yes, let's do. Let's head over to San Sebastian for Nastic heading to Zubieta to take on Real Sociedad B. It took a really impressive crowd as well, to be fair, Liam. Obviously, we saw them, going back to the concrete steps. We did rumour whether the new plastic seating that they'd installed at Zubieta was maybe for the away fans, but no. Because there was quite a good turnout from Real Sociedad fans to support their B team as well in this, to be perfectly honest. But I quite enjoyed the people stood up on the hill behind the stadium looking in to watch their game. That's some dedication, isn't it?
Yeah, because it's not just around the corner, is it? Tarragona to San Sebastian is a sizable distance. So, incredible support from these Nastic fans. Let's not forget they were losing 3-1 after the first leg. They went into this game needing to win by 3 clear goals over the 120 minutes. Incredible support, really, for what many would have seen as a lost cause. Tremendous stuff. They started pretty well, and Antonin had a fairly decent chance early on, but I think the fact it was on his left foot didn't really help. Thought Arana made a reasonable save, but didn't think that it was a particularly difficult effort to keep out. And then we had a great chance at the other end for Astiatharan for the home side. And then we had the breakthrough for the visitors. But is it fair to say it was a little bit lucky, Nick?
It's not how they go, and it's as long as they're going, as the saying goes. But yeah, for me, Juan Hardy here with the whipped in cross, it just seemed to wrong for everybody, including Arana, and it found itself in the back of the goal. And it's an excellent time to score as well, because as we were saying, there was a few chances early on, but the game wasn't a rip-roaring start, was it? So for this, I think this really put the wind into Nastic's sails, and I think that really helped them bounce out into the second half as well, didn't they?
Yeah, I think so. I think it is an intention, of course, from Jamie Dowdy, but ultimately the way I suppose you have to look at it, we often talk about this, and he whips the ball in, into that area where that corridor of uncertainty, where the keeper can't really commit himself, because if anyone gets a touch on it, he's going to be wrong-footed, and by the time he realizes that no one's going to get a touch on it, it's too late, and it's in the corner of the net. So yeah, there's definitely always to me going to be an element of good fortune in it, but it is good. It's an area, it's a ball played into a good area. And yeah, he gets a little bit of fortune, but still it's on target. I suppose you can say that, if nothing else. Second half, yeah. Again, I think we have. Listen, man, I think they have had a number of chances, to be penalised by referees over these 4 games, and they've got away with nearly all of them. But Marieth Corena, for me, that's a penalty, Nick, and he gets booked for diving. He's caught by the nastiest defender, and it's clear. And again, I obviously have the benefit of having seen it several times. Referee only gets one look at it because of the lack of VAR. But I don't know what you think, but it feels to me to book him for diving. I suppose if you decide not to give a penalty, you have to book him for diving, don't you? But it's a penalty for me.
Yeah, I think at the time, in the heat of the moment, I put out into the ether that diving in a playoff final is pathetic, but then when you get the benefit of looking back at it, you go, "Ooh, maybe I've misjudged that one," because, like you say, he's got a great opportunity to to go through on goal, and this is a player who is hot and form. He's obviously been involved with the first team in recent weeks as well. So yes, I think that was probably a bit of more fortune on Nasic's part for that penalty, but obviously wasn't the only penalty we saw or didn't see in that second half, Liam, because Nastic actually pulled another one back, didn't they? And Juan Ariel dispatching away. And I'll always mention this when it comes to Ariel, former Blackpool player. I just love that little link I've got to just some Spanish football at the minute. I remember watching him.
Back in the day in Blackpool, indeed, you did, didn't you? Yeah. I think it's a challenge. And there's 2 challenges, actually. The first challenge is by Aran on Victor Nara, who, interestingly, we didn't really talk about team selection with him, but San Pedro left him on the bench. Now, Victor Nara's had a great season, so that was a really interesting call for me to do that. But yeah, he came on, and at this stage was pretty heavily involved in the incident, because he was challenged fairly. I think the referee got that right. He was challenged fairly by Arana, but then Arana sort of got up and went for the next one, and I think he does bring down Antonin. And as you say, Oriol tucks away the penalty, and it's all square. We're heading to extra time, and Mission Impossible is still on. And then there's this really cruel twist in the tale, isn't there, in the 30 minutes of extra time?
Yeah, well, I think it's also to to highlight in that extra time period as well that Nastic really did go for it, and if it wasn't for a few last-ditch interventions from Real Sociedad Bay players, they could have gone and got the winning goal that they required. But when you are committing that many players forward, you do tend to get a bit of a lapse in your concentration, especially towards the back, and then this penalty, which has been awarded for handball and then was subsequently tucked away to win it for Real Sociedad Bay. It was a bit harsh in the end, wasn't it, Liam? Given the fact that, as Nastic Tarragona have rightly pointed out in some of their post-match videos, it didn't seem fair that they got one and Nastic Tarragona didn't.
Yeah, I think the ball hits around Sociedad Bay hand 3 times. in the box over 120 minutes. I counted 3 occasions when the referee could have given a penalty to the away side in pretty similar circumstances. I suppose the third one late on, he doesn't know much about it, but it does hit his arm, quite clearly. And so, yeah, I mean, I hate these penalties. He's so close to him, isn't he? He's not flung out a hand to block it or anything. It's hit him on the arm, but from very, very little distance away. And in this day and age, they do tend to get given. But, for me, if you're going to give those, you've got to give them all. And as I say, Nastic certainly would feel under that if you judged it under that on that basis, that they should have had at least one, and if not two, maybe even 3 penalties. So yeah, it's an incredibly harsh and difficult way to have your chances of going up ended. I mean, because of course, as soon as they scored that goal, Sociedad and pulled it back to 2-1, Nastic suddenly need 2 more goals. Because they can't just win 3-1, because of course Real Sociedad finished higher up. So yeah, it was a horrible way after all they put into it. We gave them really no chance, didn't we? And they were so close, as you say. They were pushing for that 3rd goal in extra time, and then they get hit by this. Yeah, it's not dubious, I suppose, because you do often see them given nowadays. But as I say, there's some other ones not given in this game. So yeah, very disappointing for them, and they've had a miserable time of it, haven't they, in the playoffs in the last few years, Nick?
Yeah, the playoffs and Nacionalista Tarragona just don't seem to go well together at all. That's 3 playoff defeats in the last 4 seasons, and keep running closer and closer to being promoted to the Spanish Segunda. Obviously my club Malaga played them in the playoff final last season when they had the home advantage as well, and obviously that Antonito 122nd minute goal put pains to that. But, we have warmed to them, or certainly I have definitely warmed to them over the last few months. Liam, I know that you went to watch them against Ponferradina at the Costa de Ruda. We've had to interact with the fans online and on Twitter, and they've been absolutely brilliant. And to see the enthusiasm they have for their club, as we've mentioned a couple of times, where they are based as well, you could quite easily find that the populace decides to go for, I'll use air quotes on a podcast, a bigger club, but the support they get is fantastic. And I really do wish them the best of luck next season, because if they make the playoffs again, as we were talking about Ponfe earlier, it's got to be a weight on their minds that they can't seem to push past this
absolutely
operation
right,
to get through it.
Absolutely right. I mean, this is really tough for them, isn't it? And I agree with you. Yeah, I mean, most of what I'd seen in Nastic before this season, I felt, well, I mean, that's probably the stuff that I noticed most of all, of course, was the stuff, around the Malaga game last year. And I don't think that various fans, members of the Directiva, covered themselves in glory in those games. But, yeah, I would agree. I wish them the very best. I mean, I don't know what happens with San Pedro now. Obviously, he's coming right at the end of the season, and one would think he would hang around for next season, but who knows? We shall see. Anyway, we have those decisions finally made for us, don't we, in terms of who's going to be with us next season. We now know that we're going to lose Cultural Leonesa, Ceuta, Andorra, and Real Sociedad B to Segunda next season, and we wish them the best of luck in their endeavours. I say that obviously with slightly gritted teeth as far as the last of those 4 teams is concerned, but we're not quite sure yet, are we? Or maybe we will be very soon, who we might be getting for Segunda Ref, because it seems to be all sorted, didn't it, Nick? And then, of course, we had a slightly inevitable outcome of a sort of hearing last week, didn't we? And that's left us not being quite sure as to how things might, eventually pan out in Primera RF in terms of some of the promoted teams from Segunda RF who clinched their place in Primera RF a few weeks ago.
Yeah, this is quite interesting because the way it sort of enveloped and came out, you'd assume that it was a response directly to Europa, obviously putting their appeal, wanting to play at New Sardinia in Gracia with their artificial pitch and the challenges they have. Arenas Club de Guecho obviously had sort of piggybacked onto the back of that conversation as well, because they've got a plastic pitch at their home stadium. But I think after the general meeting where they've decided what the rules are going to be, what the caps are going to be, what the stadium capacities are going to have to be, they have said basically everyone needs a grass pitch, and you've got until I think it's the 26th of January to sort it out. Is what we're being told that way. So again, these two clubs here, I think you've mentioned to me that Getcho have got, an alternative in the town, in the city, that they can go to. But Europa, it's going to be so much harder because due to the lack of grass pitches available in Barcelona, you look at what stadiums or what facilities available, and they're quite thin on the ground. So what did they do? Did they carry on? They've already spoken about going to an appeal and playing at the stadium, but then you've got to get to January and say, right, well, where do we go from here? They're already 4 or 5 weeks behind the curve when maybe they could have been upgrading the facilities. But again, I ask you, I get the precedent that would be set, but where's the flexibility to allow clubs like this to grow over time rather than slapping them with a big bill?
Yeah, I mean, this is why I don't think we can be sure who's going to... I mean, the fixtures are being announced next Tuesday, aren't they, for Primera RFEF? And it is a gamble. It has to be, doesn't it? Because, as you say, I do not see a way out for them. They've been adamant. I don't think they'd be confident winning an appeal because it's basically the RFEF run the league, and it's up to them what they do. I don't think they can claim it's unconstitutional or anything. So do you go into it knowing that what would happen if they got to the 26th of January and they hadn't managed to solve the problem? Would they have to then just try and find somewhere to play, to see out the season? Because otherwise, presumably, they could be kicked out of the league, couldn't they? So they've got to be very confident that they've got a backup plan. It's interesting even that they're going to be allowed to play until 26th of January, because I don't think there's ever been any... Well, maybe it's just that same allowance was granted to the likes of Tarazona and Unionistas, and they just thought, right, we need to get this sorted. We're not going to take any chances. But we could actually be seeing the first ever game in the Primera RFEF on an artificial pitch, as far as I can see, because I think everyone else did get their pitches sorted, from the day that they need to be sorted, at the start of the season, to the first home game was played on grass. So we shall see how that story develops. Should we move on to some coach and transfer news?
Yes, definitely. Like you say, we're getting very much into the swing of things now. So to start with, some of the coach and transfer news. Firstly, in Sabadell, former Andorra coach Ferran Costa has been announced as the new manager there. So he was at Andorra up until January this year, where he was replaced by Beto Company. And obviously, as I say, the rest is history with that one. So interesting that he's going to go into Sabadell now, a club that will have ambitions of really establishing itself at this level. And having achieved promotions with Zamora and Sabadell in the last 2 seasons, David Movia is again looking for another job, Liam. It kind of feels a bit harsh on him that he's seemingly this Super Segunda Ref promotion manager, yet he can never seem to get a crack at Primera Ref.
It's bizarre, isn't it? I don't understand what that's at all. I don't know the circumstances well enough to know what the situation is, but I do know that he came in I think, January this year and has got Sabadell up and why he left Zamora last year, again, don't know. So yeah, I'm quite sure he will be back in a job very soon because of the record he's had over the last 2 seasons, but it does seem a strange one to me. Another coach that we've seen something about this week, but he's not going anywhere, is he?
No, Paco Gemes, Ibiza are on a early dominance shopping spree, I would feel, on this one. So I was surprised to see that Paco Gemes has signed on for another year. I thought, he's obviously served out his season with Ibiza. He may go look for a challenge elsewhere. Obviously, the Iranian market is probably not open to him at this very moment in time. But then, we look at some of the renewals that they have. Eric Monreal, Unai Medina, Bebe signing on. They've obviously announced the 2 new signings today of Nacho Gonzalez from Intercity. And obviously the news that we broke here on El Pozo 3 weeks ago that Frank Castillo from Torremolinos was signing for them. They've all been announced today. But the one player that they probably wanted to keep that isn't staying is Guillem Molina. He is going to be tough to replace, Liam, isn't he? Because we've described him as a Rolls Royce on this podcast. Very strong, very tall, still only 25 years old. Will you be talking about him on your other podcast next season, do you reckon?
I don't know. It's a strange one, isn't it? He's left his contract a year early. Now, clearly, they would want to keep him. As you say, he's a very good defender. So it feels to me like he's probably said to them, look, I've got an opportunity to play at a high level. Will you let me go? Unless he's going abroad. I don't know. It's a really strange one for me. But yeah, he's got to be taking a step up, hasn't he, really? I don't think there'd be any dissatisfaction with his season unless Marco Gemes has fallen out with him, and Paco James staying is enough for Guillermo Molina to say, right, well, I'm not going to stay if he's getting another year, then I'm out of here. I don't know, but yeah, I think he's a good player. We've talked, haven't we, in the past few weeks about players making their way up to Segunda from Primera RFEF, and we've had another example of that this week as well, haven't we?
We have. Cordoba are doing their job properly. Like you say, recruiting from this level is a great advertisement for this level, and they've managed to shark another star of the league. This time in Grupo Dos, it's Frank Fomiem, who is making the I want to say the short trip, but it might not be that short. Antequera to Cordoba.
Very short, yeah, very short. Yeah. It's just down the road.
Yeah, so he doesn't need to move house, but he's moving from Antequera to Cordoba, obviously drawing Adri Fuentes as well, who was at Tarazona last season, finishing one of the top goal scorers in Grupo Uno. He's also heading there. There's also a young Brazilian chap from Pontevedra who has also been signed by Cordoba. So, they're doing some pretty decent shopping at this level, and probably, as you've lent to before, Liam, getting some bargains as well. Good move for Fomiem. He was introduced in a very funky way with a word search. They actually didn't say his surname; it just gave his first name.
Really, I didn't see that. That's quite entertaining. I don't know. I think he's one of those who has a bit of an error in him, a bit of a big error in him. But yeah, I suppose again, as we say, very low risk, isn't it? Really, ask him to relocate. He might turn out to be really decent, and you will have, obviously. I'm not sure if he's out of contract, but if you had to pay to take him off Antequera's hands, you certainly wouldn't be paying much, because the cláusulas de rescisión in this league are generally very, very low. So yeah, it's a promising signing for them. Let's see if he can fulfill that promise. I wouldn't be totally convinced. And we've talked obviously about players getting a chance at a high level. Now we've got a coach from Segunda RFEF who's getting his opportunity on a bigger stage, isn't he?
Yeah, and a name that people might know as well. Let's not forget, this was a former Spanish international, Oriol Riera, who was last seen on the south coast at Estepona, narrowly missed out on promotion from Segunda RFEF. He is going to be the Unionistas manager next season, which I think is quite interesting. A big change is seen from him there, but most people will remember his time at Estepona as the crazy Copa del Rey run that they had, where sadly for me to say, they beat Malaga. They knocked Malaga out in that run, and ended up taking Leganes quite far into that game as well before they put out their misery. But yeah, he's quite an interesting appointment, Liam, and a good chance for him to prove his worth at a high level as well.
Very much so. Yeah, I think that's an interesting hire from Unionistas, and a very promising one. I think he's shown his mettle, hasn't he, with Estepona, as you say, and Unionistas, a club that's desperately in need of somebody, an up and coming coach like himself, and let's hope that works out for him. In that same sort of part of the world, there have been a couple of fairly startling signings from Zamora in the last 24 hours, haven't they? I mean, picked up Eslava from Merida, which I imagine cost him a pretty penny, because he's a pretty hot property at the moment, to get him on board. And then they've also re-signed a former player from Cacereño, haven't they? Jaime Sancho, I think it is. Jaime Sancho, sorry. And again, he had a really decent season with Cacereño, would have been playing Primera RFEF football this season anyway, but has gone back to Zamora. So looks like they're splashing a bit of cash just a few miles up the road in Zamora.
Yeah. We need a cha-ching noise around here about now, don't they? Because, like you say, we spoke highly of some of those Merida players. Some of them we expected would follow Guillo Costa Huesca. I think Beltran is one of those players that's going to do that. But we thought that Slava would do the same. It's strange as well, and I know we were going to speak about, but the exodus at Merida is quite unusual at the minute, because we've seen some pretty high-profile players that helped them reach the playoffs this season leave. I believe there's I've had to forgive my name now. I think it was Jaime. He was ended up at Tenerife, hasn't he? He's been announced there as well. So decent players getting moved to some other decent clubs, but why haven't Merida, given their new situation, decided to keep them? I don't know. It's quite strange, isn't it?
Yeah, sorry. There was one got this one on Tenerife, but Juan Parra is the keeper who I think is quite likely to end up at Huesca, isn't it? By the sounds of it, he might well join Guillo up there. And yeah, it feels a bit weird, doesn't it? Because you say it's almost like they've done so well, but the new guard is going a different direction, and so has allowed some of the key players to leave. Maybe they just see the future elsewhere because of the change of sporting director and everything, and a new direction for the club. I think they'll be okay, but yeah, I'm surprised that more haven't stayed. I think Don Thela stayed, doesn't he? But the others it looks like most of the other players will leave, and they'll end up with a fairly new team for 25-26. We shouldn't really still be mentioning Claro Deportivo on this podcast, should we? Because they have been relegated, they have gone, but a couple of their former players, as they are now, will be back with us in 25-26, won't they?
They will, and they are players that are probably in easy access to us if we're going to go watch some football on the Costa del Sol, because the Yekla Batistuta, as we coined him here, the centre half Gabri has joined Marbella, which I think is a very fun move for him. And again, we've spoken about some of the other clubs' recruitment so far. Marbella are doing some really, really good moves so far, signing some, pretty decent players of pedigree, including Gabri as well. And then Pau Perez as well, who, we thought maybe would settle around the Murcia area. He signed on to join Primera RFEF New Boys Torremolinos, who obviously are in the hunt for a striker, knowing that Fran Castillo is going to Ibiza as well. So again,
he's not a striker. We're being ticked off for that, Nick.
Oh well, yes. Yeah, well, I'll tell you. Goal scorer there.
Chambers turn up at this point. He's not listening to you. Yeah, he is. I mean, I have to say, having not seen Fran Castillo play at all, if I'm honest, when I saw that tally of goals, I just assumed he was a striker as well, but he's not. He's a number 10, so no wonder he's very appealing to Ibiza.
What is a striker nowadays, Liam? In modern football, what is a striker?
Yeah, false 9, false 10, etc. No, he plays a bit deeper, doesn't he? And I imagine that's where Ibiza will continue to play. But yeah, Pau Perez will be very interesting. I mean, both Perez and Gabri have come up really with Yaclana from Tercera RF, so they've made their name with Claro Deportivo, but clearly having played a whole season in Primera RF, why would you not want to stay at that level? It's really sad, obviously, to see them both go, but they contribute a huge amount to that club over the last 2 or 3 seasons, and so we wish them well, of course, in their new careers in another part of the world. And as you say, certainly if I'm heading down to the South Coast, I'll be looking to check out how they're getting on at either Marbella or Torremolinos.
Yeah, and from what I'm hearing as well, maybe don't plan to go to Torremolinos in one of the few early games of the season, because I believe they are being sanctioned for their on-the-pitch celebrations after they did get promoted and won the league in their Grupo. Apparently, El Pozuelo could be subject to a behind closed doors situation where they're not allowed to put fans in for a couple of games. So, we'll keep an eye on that out and let you know the result of that sanctions. I think it's €100,000 fine as well for celebrating. Woke nonsense, Liam. Utter woke nonsense.
Real Oviedo have been done for it as well. I think the suggestion is that their stadium's going to be closed as well.
Honestly,
for the cardinal sin of celebrating returning to La Liga after 24 years and away from it. I mean, honestly, seriously, what a bunch of killjoys! Absolutely,
absolutely.
On an amazing run, at promotions and incredible achievement, and yeah. You're gonna shut the ground because you've warned them and they've come on the pitch again, for God's sake.
Yeah, definitely worth checking out as well if you're in that neck of the woods too. And if you, I suppose there's a couple of things I wanted to add on to the end of this. First of all, was the Antequera signing of Osama Chit. I don't know if you know much about him, but they signed him from my new favourite named club in Spain, which is Club Deportivo Don Benito, which I just think is a very fun name. And also, if you wanted to know more about Costa del Sol football, our friend of the podcast, Luke Chambers, has set up a brilliant page that I think you should go and check out called Costa del Football, which will be focused on Torremolinos, Marbella, Malaga, and San Pedro and all that jazz. I think it's just quite a fun little focus for that, Liam. Though someone did comment on him saying, "Oh, covering 8 teams might be hard. I said try covering 40. That might be a bit more of a one to look at.
Yeah, very much so. Although we probably only really cover 30, don't we, as much as we can. But that's still, still far more. But yeah, 8 teams less.
Lost one.
Yeah,
we've lost one and gained none. That's what I'm looking at as a positive.
This is very true. Very true. We're up to 31 then. Brilliant. Yeah, so we should call it a day, though, really, shouldn't we? Yeah. Thank you so much to everybody who's got in touch with us and who's followed us on the various social media pages that we dedicate to what we love doing, which is talking about Primera football. It's been absolutely superb. We've really been blown away by the engagement that we've had in these first few months from both from many people, who speak English as their first language and a huge number of native Spanish speakers as well. So thank you so much for all your words of encouragement. And we will keep going, but we are going to take a bit of a break now, Nick, aren't we?
We are, yes. We are. We'll obviously keep up to date on social media and such like that with all the moves and shakes, and as we find our feet with what happens during the summer transfer window and stuff like that, Liam. Obviously, we've never covered it before from a Primera RF perspective. So fixtures soon, any updates on teams looking for new stadiums, signings, managers, it's all bound to happen in the next few weeks, which should be very interesting. El Pozo as well is worth mentioning, will be in a new home from the start of the season as well, because we are going to have a separate feed, so you don't have to go to El Partido. It'll still be available on the Patreon for Spanish Segunda listeners as well. So it's good news that it's going to be in its own little home where we can dedicate more to Primera, because I think next season is going to be absolutely brilliant. Liam, just looking at the where have you done the draw the line task yet?
I've looked at many other people's draw the lines. I just don't know. I suppose we'll find out next Tuesday, won't we? It's quite exciting. Yeah, there's so many possibilities, isn't there? But lots of rumours, but nothing concrete yet. So let's see what they eventually decide on.
Yes, expect the unexpected is what I would tend to prescribe with the way they draw that line across Spain to regionalise between north and south, or east and west, or northwest and southeast. It's impossible to judge. But yes, I echo what Liam said. Thank you so much for your support with El Pozo this season. We're looking forward already to get involved in the next. So yes, I'll say thank you to you, the listeners at home, and I'll say gracias to you, Liam. I'll see you after the summer. Have a good time. We'll catch you then.
Hasta la próxima.